just became Dean of the Faculty of Arts. We're talking about Professor Kwame Osei-Kwarteng. When we were in school, we used to call him Osquat, Osquat for short. And he's joined us this morning to help us understand, the history of our country, Ghana. Professor Kwame Osei-Kwarteng, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Great. I was just telling Kujwa Kutubuating, who went to Kumasi High, that you taught history at Kumasi High Secondary School. But Kumasi High School. Yes. Forgive me. These days we've done senior high secondary school and whatever. But Kumasi High School.
Yes.
But Professor Osei-Kwarteng, let's get into a conversation about Ghana.
Okay.
And for many of us, whenever we've talked about Ghana, we've always talked more about Ghana from the period of when the colonialists got into the country, Gold Coast. But help us understand the land that we occupy today, this land, Ghana. When did the first people get here? What are our beginnings as a country?
Well, thank you very much. It will be very difficult to determine when the first people got here. You see, we have different ethnic groups here.
Mm-hmm.
And the Guans, those who belong to the Guan stock, are believed to have been the first people to inhabit Ghana, or what became known as Gold and subsequently Ghana, before others who were immigrants came and then defeated them and incorporated some of these Guans into their fold, and eventually they crystallized into the people that we have today, either as Gonjas, either as Mole Dagwanis, either as Akans, either as Ebers, or either as Ga and Adangu.
Okay.
So if you want to know, this is what I know.
Okay, and based on what you know that you've told us, in fact, it's interesting how you put it. So the original people who inhabited the land first are believed to be the Guans. And then other people, you call them immigrants, came in, defeated them. And, so tell us from the early settlers, the Guans, what happened next? I mean, I'm interested in, the other groups that came in and what they did and at what point.
Yeah, these Guans, I believe, from the studies I've done so far, it appears that they were the remnants, or they emerged out of the Stone Age people. And so these people were living here when the others came.
Okay.
They didn't know anything about political organization. They were led by fetish priests who performed rituals for them. That's why when you go to you have the Kendanas and what have you, and you go to Akuapem areas, we have the fetish priests, Akonid, and the rest. These were the people who were leading them and always performing rituals and sacrifices on behalf of the people. Then, other people, with respect to the Mole Dagwani people, they were led by Nagwewa. And Nagwewa's story is traced to Lake Chad area, one Tohazi. Tohazi migrated to Mali, and from Mali, his descendants moved from Mali to the northern part of Ghana, Pusiga.
Okay.
This time, the one who led them was Nagwewa. And then he met the autochthonous people. In other words, the Aborigines there who were Guan. And then, because these people had no idea about political organization, about military warfare, these people, immigrants who came, they had that knowledge, that skill. So they impose their political authority upon them, because if you have weapons and others do not have, you can easily overcome them. And so they impose their political will upon them. And after Nagwewa, his sons also moved from Posiga area. And then some of them went to Dagomba, established Dagomba, and then some also established Nanumba, and Mamprusi was the one who established Mamprusi was the eldest who succeeded the father. So you see that the Moli Dagwani people, they always give reverence to their senior brother, that's Mamprusi. That's why any problem that occurs in any of these areas, we have to refer it to Mamprusi, the Nairi of Mamprusi. Then if you come to the Akan areas, we have 3 areas that have been identified as the cradle or provenance of the Akans. We have Asanteman, we have Asen Manso, then we also have Adans, and then Techiman, Bono Techiman.
Okay.
What we have been made to understand by archaeologists was that during the Stone Age era, or the latter stage of the Stone Age era, some people migrated from the Sahel zone and entered the transitional zone. When we talk about transitional zone, we are talking about Petiman, Tintampo areas, and these people later on, other people also came and joined them. At a point, they went into hibernation. They went into hibernation in caves, and then came out after some time, and they came out at a place called Amowi in Bono Techiman area. And so, with time, some people migrated also from that area. They migrated from the Bono Techiman area and came to the coast, the Fanti land. So, if you look at the history of the Fantis, they claim, the Boro Fantis claim that they migrated from Techiman. So, this is how come they came to settle at the coast. That is where they evolved. They evolved and crystallized at Bono Techiman, Amowi, that area. And then Wenchi people, the Wenchi tradition also says, or oral tradition, backed by theological studies, also talk about the fact that the Wenchi people say they came from Bono, from a hole, and then they spread out and settled in the area, in the Wenchi area. Then you come to Adansi area. Adansi is also considered to be one of the cradle of the Akans.
Okay.
Now, if you look at contemporary European records, they refer to the Adansi and the area where the Adansi people and the Akans were settled, and the traders from that area, Akani, is spelled Acanny, Akani, or Akan, Akani, Akani. Yeah, these people, when the first Europeans came, the Portuguese and subsequently the Dutch and the British, these people were sending gold from the area, from the forest belt, that's the Pra or Faint Brim basin or region, that area. That was where they were supposed to have been living. They were going to the coast. So the European records at that time, especially if you look at the Dutch map of 1629, Akani is captured, and the Akani is interpreted to mean what? The Adansi people or the Akan people. So instead of calling them the Adansi, they were calling them the Akani. But eventually, the name Akani came to be identified with the Adansi and then the Akan people. And it was from this Adansi area that most of the Akan people, when they crystallize, they also move to other places due to either population explosion or political pressure. You know, when Adansi was at the peak of his glory, Adansi didn't have arms, just like those in the north. Adansi's power was based on the fame of its God and then also its enlightenment. Adansi were the people who first built houses. So it means that just like what happened at Techiman, when the people went into hibernation and were living in caves, in the same way, those in the forest area, in the Adansi area, were prior to they building houses or learning the technology of building houses, the people have been living in caves. And then a time came, they got the technology to build houses, and they built thatch houses. So they became enlightened, And then also their chief was the first person to speak through a language called the Adansi chief called Awurade Basa was the first chief to speak through a language. So they were seen by their neighbors as what? Enlightened people. And then also they were the first to live in state. So people saw them as enlightened people, and people copied them because you copy the good things of other people. But then as the population exploded, some of them moved away to Asante Manso, and then from Asante Manso to Kwaman, which is today Kumasi, and then to other places like Mampong, Asante Mampong, and then populated the forest, and then the grassland areas in Afram Place and all those areas. Now, in the second half of the 17th century, that's from 1650 onwards, what happened was that the Dutch introduced arms and ammunition into the Gold Coast.
Okay.
And when they introduced arms and ammunition, Dentra was able to acquire it, and Dentra overthrew the power of Adansi because Adansi didn't have arms. And so when Dentra overthrew the power of Adansi, Dentra came to dominate all the forest states, Kwaman, Asante Manso, and all these places. So most of the people were not happy, and they decided to move. That's why I said that due to population pressure, political pressure and population explosion, so Adansi acquired political power and lording it over the rest.
Okay,
made others move away, and they were spread to cover all these areas.
Okay, before you move on, Prof. Yes,
the people came to populate the forest belt, and eventually they established empires. The Ashantis will emerge, overthrow the power of Dentra, and then extend their political tentacles to cover virtually the whole of Ghana and even beyond, until the British will come. And then during the European imperialism, they will fight the Ashantis because they saw the Ashanti was creating problems for them, and eventually it will cause a situation where Ashanti will be defeated by the British, and then the British will colonize Ashanti, and the people in the Gold Coast, who have now become a British colony, will then fight for their independence.
Okay.
And on the day of their independence, or before they got their independence, the nationalist leaders, then agreed that they will call their country Ghana, going for a name of an ancient empire that emerged in the Sahel belt.
Okay. Before we get to the name Ghana itself, so you've talked about, you talked about the Adansi moving into the forest areas. When you talk about Kwaman, you say present day Kumasi. That's fantastic. So when you talk about the Dentra, for instance, so for those who may not know these areas very well, just as you did, with present day Kumasi as Kwaman. So when you talk about the Dentra areas of the past, of the 1650s and all, the present day town, so we can begin to picture them and say, okay, this is where we're going. So when you talk about, say, you've talked about, Nagbewa coming to Pusiga. Okay, we know Pusiga. And then, the Mampusi, we know the Nairi. Then they went to the Dagomba, the Nanumba. So if you look at those groups, which areas, present-day areas, did they settle in, if you know them, so we can begin to picture these areas and when they, settled in Ghana?
Well, the Adansi, their capital was Akrokere. That was where Adansi Bona was.
Okay.
Dentra, their capital was Abanketia, so which was 15 miles away from Akrokere. You get me? So you know where Akrokere is in Adansi area in Asante. And then you talk about Kwaman. When you talk about Kwaman, some scholars, historians, identify Kwaman to be Kumasi. You get me? If you read McCarthy's work, when he writes Kwaman, then into brackets Kumasi. But other scholars, when they talk about Kwaman, they are referring to where Kumewu is, where Mampong is. So they say Tafo, Kase, Amakom, where all these things, before those from Asante Manso came, they're quite in Sita, where these towns are located. before those from Asante Manso migrated to Paman, there were people who were already living there, like Amakom, like Kapo, and then Kasi. But then the immigrants from Asante Manso were able to defeat them and then incorporated them into the state. They were Akan speaking people. But then there were also some Gwa speaking people. All these people were conquered and incorporated into Ashanti, and they began to speak the Ashanti language. And then there were people who were even houses or Mondays who were traded and were coming to Tafo to trade. All these people were incorporated into the state, were incorporated into the kingdom or into the state. I forgot to tell you about Gonja. There were also people who were living in the area now we call Gonja, the area we now identify with the Gonja.
The Savannah area.
Monday people. The ruling class came from Monday. And the gold, our land, Ghana, goes everywhere, is endowed with gold. So people were trading before the Europeans. People were trading to the Western Sudanese Emporium. That was the direction of trade. People were going to the Trans-Saharan trade. They were going to Western Sudan to trade. We call it Trans-Saharan trade. So they were going to the trading centers. So gold, one of the articles of trade was gold. Gold was being transported from here to Mali. But then, at the point, the gold was not flowing. And the Gonja, the Mali chief, did not understand why the gold was not coming from Gold Coast or the northern Ghana. So he sent some warriors to come and ensure that gold will flow. The warriors will come and ensure whatever was blocking the gold from flowing, they should come and remove the obstacle. When they came, that was in the Japa, was the one who led them. When they came, instead of going back, they thought that the people here, the people in those areas, were not armed. They were not ruled by. They were not organized people. Were organized people politically. So they decided to impose their political will on them. They defeated them, and so they established the kingdom of what? Gonja.
Okay.
So we have the Gonja, the ruling class being immigrants from Mali. Do you get me? Also coming in. So that is why we have powerful things like the Gonja, the Dagomba, the Mampisi, and all those in the north. And then when we come to the south, the Akans, and then the Ebe also are believed to have come from Nuache. They came from Ketu in southern Nigeria, and then came to Nuache, and from there they entered where they live today in modern Ghana. But they came in waves. They didn't come as one group. They came in waves, three waves, one to the coastal strip, one to the middle, and then one to the northern land.
Okay.
So these are the locations that I can give you, or some of the towns, but I cannot be mentioning all the names, but at least I've been able to provide you with the regions or the areas where these people came and then imposed their political authority on the indigenous people.
Great. And we are very grateful. Someone sent me a question once. You talked about you talked about Fanti, and he says, did they not come from Israel? Because, you hear talks about some Ghanaians coming from Israel. I don't know if you want to address that one before I move to the name Ghana itself.
Yeah, this is a tradition. We have migrationists and anti-migrationists, two schools of thought. Normally, some people will say that people came from somewhere. Some say they came from Israel, and some say they came from Arabia and all these places. Those who came, they came from Arabia, like the Ga and Adangwe people. Arabia or the Middle East. That is where in Israel. That was where Abraham and then also Jesus and all that came from. The biblical story, the Judeo-Christian tradition. That is where it came from. And then the Islamic tradition also, it came from where? Saudi Arabia. So these are places where if you come from that place, you become proud. Everybody wants to be associated with greatness. Do you get me?
Okay.
So I'm not surprised that some people claim that they came from Israel because of the fact that Israel universally is acclaimed to be a place where God appeared and spoke with man face to face. So who wouldn't want to be associated with anything that is great? So that is what they say. Even some of the accounts on the migration of accounts, the migrationist theories, it also talks about accounts migrating from Mesopotamia, that's present-day Iraq, coming to Egypt, and then moving to ancient Ghana Empire. From ancient Ghana Empire, when the Hammurabis invaded ancient Ghana Empire, then they decided to move away from there and enter the forest belt of Ghana. But be it as it may, whether the migrationist or the anti-migrationist theory, we believe that some people were living in the Gold Coast in situ, and with time, some people came from somewhere. Wherever they came from, nobody knows. And then all these people mingled together, and eventually they crystallized into the various peoples that we have today. But you can't tell me that all the people migrated from somewhere and then entered an empty space that later became known as Ghana. No, there were people since the Stone Age era. There were people living in the Gold Coast, and then others came and joined them. And it keeps on. The migration keeps on occurring. I don't come from Central Region, but today I'm in Central Region with my family. You get me? I may live here for the rest of my life. My children may live here. And so a time will come, you ask them, and they say, so we came from Ashanti region with our father, and then you came to settle here. And my grandchildren will not even remember the time we came. Even the day they may not even be able to. What they may remember is how our grandfather was a lecturer at UTC, University of Cape Coast, and then he came to build his house here, and he lived here after his retirement. He lived here until he was called into eternity. And even today, I have my grandchildren living in Canada. So you will see a situation where part of people moving from one location to another. And this is how the world has been since time immemorial.
Okay. So let's look at Ghana. And yes, we're talking Gold Coast. Then after independence, we say, before independence, yes, just around the time, the Gold Coast becomes Ghana. And I mean, there are people who are struggling to understand. So we know of the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Soso Empire. At what point did the country Gold Coast become associated with Ghana and the old Ghana Empire to warrant the name Ghana?
Yeah. What I do know is that J.B. Dankwa, one of the migrationists, he belongs to the school of migrationists.
Okay.
He carried out his research, and he postulates that the Akans migrated from ancient Mesopotamia, came to Egypt and then ancient Ghana Empire, and then finally to settle in Akan land. The evidence he used or he adduced in support of his theory was that if you look at the Akan culture, vis-a-vis the culture of the ancient Ghana Empire, they were similar. One, he identifies the system of inheritance, that's matrilineal.
Okay.
The ancient Ghana Empire, the king was succeeded by the nephew. You get me?
Okay.
Similarly, if you come to Akan land, it predominantly is matrilineal, brother to nephew. When the brothers are finished, then the nephews will come. You get me?
Yeah.
That is one. If you look at the way the king sits in states, ancient Ghana Empire, the king, and you have a situation where page boys in Akan, we call it in Henkwa, sitting in front of him. You get me? Carrying sauce and what have you. It's also the same thing happening in Ghana and the same thing happening in Ghana here, among the Akans. So he used this as his basis in concluding that people from the Akan people migrated from the ancient Mesopotamia to Egypt, and then Egypt became to ancient Ghana Empire. And when ancient Ghana Empire fell, following the Hammurabi invasion, then the people came into the forest belt and stay here. Now, he then proposed or suggested that when we gain independence, because J.B. Dankwa played a prominent role in the struggle for independence, and he suggested first that you should call it Akan land. The country should be called Akan land. But then, later, it was proposed to be, if you make it Akan land, then it becoming colloquial, because it's only Akans that you are giving prominence to. What about the others? So now they decided to use the name ancient, the name Ghana, because Akan culture, when somebody dies, not only Akan, all the people in Ghana, when somebody lives a good life and dies, we see him as ancestor. So the next generation, when they are naming people, they name them after the old people who died. So they decided that, okay, in the same way, we will also name our country that was going to gain independence after ancient Ghana Empire. That is how come we got the name Ghana. So it was a proposal made based on research of J.B. Dankwa by the nationalist leaders, and Kwame Nkrumah did not jettison that, and they named Ghana, they named the Gold Coast. And the name Gold Coast had been given to us by the Portuguese. When the Portuguese explored the coast of Africa, they named all the territories they found with the name of major commodities that they found there. In Ivory Coast, ivory was dominant. Article of trade was the dominant article of trade. So they decided to call the place Ivory Coast. When they Sierra Leone and beyond, they saw that place, they had a lot of grain, so they call it Grain Coast. In Dahomey area, they saw that the people there were trading in slaves, so they called the Slave Coast. So this is how come we also got our name gold, because gold was super abundant in Gold Coast, along that from Cape Trade Point to Cape Apollonia. So along this stretch of coast, gold was in super abundance, so they call the place Gold Coast.
Okay, but talking about the old Ghana Empire, and because you've told us about the Mande people even coming in, settling around Gonja, there are those who also believe that the Mande people are descendants of the historic Mali and Ghana empires. So could it also have played a role, because they also had now come to settle in what we termed the Gold Coast?
Yeah. When you talk about the Ghana Empire, the people there were Soninke. The people who founded ancient Ghana Empire were the Soninke. And then the Mande were in Mali. I will not dismiss that. We have had cultural linkage. If you talk about the Gonjas, we have Mandates even there. Even we have, they are the same people you call Wangara. Some Wangaras are here, the houses are here, and all that. But the giving of the name Ghana to our country, as I stated, was based on the research that J.B. Dankwa carried out, and then the suggestion that he made, and the leaders, our nationalist leaders, they all agreed and decided to give that name to Ghana based on our culture, the way and manner we name our newborn babies after our ancestors, after our either dead father our dead grandmother, our dead great grandfather, and even today, our chiefs. When we are installing a new chief, you see that the chief, they will ask him, what name do you want to adopt? And then he will mention one of the names of the great ancestors. So today, let me use Asante Otunfo Osei as an example. Now, he is the 16th Asante, but he adopted the name of the first Asante Osei the first. Do you get me? So that is how they came about it, using that principle.
So, Professor Kwame Osei-Kwarteng, I was going to say Osquat because, back at UCC.
You can say Osquat because
yes,
my peers still call me
Osquat. From
and I don't shy away from it.
Oh, yes. Back at UCC, we call you
High
Osquat.
School have been sending in messages.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they also used to call him Osquat.
Yes, in the history, in the arts faculty, Osquat yes. For short. Sir Kwame Osei-Kwarteng, Professor of History, has been telling us more about that. He's joined us again. Professor Osei-Kwarteng, so thank you very much for helping us know where we're from as a people and even the name Ghana. So in wrapping up, if I asked you today, so when we say Ghana, the people of Ghana, who are we? What would you say we are?
Yeah, the people of Ghana are made up of different states and kingdoms that were once colonized by the British when European imperialism dawned in the late 19th century and early 20th century. I'll start from the coast. In 1844, because of the trouble Ashanti was given to the Europeans, the British, because Ashanti was making a thrust to the coast. And in making a thrust to the coast to conquer the people along the coast, especially the Fanti, it came into conflict with the British. And so the British, the Southerners, and then the British on one side formed a coalition against the Ashanti, and they fought in 1823. And unfortunately, the British were defeated by Ashantis, and Sir Charles McCarthy died. Now, after that, in 1869, thereabout, let me continue from there before I go to 1869. After this, eventually the British signed a treaty called the Bond of 1844 with Ashantis. With the Fantis, or the coastal people. And when they signed that bond, it did not begin the colonization. Rather, it began the process of eventual colonization. And it also began the beginning of the introduction of British legal system in the Gold Coast. Then, in 1826, the Ashantis and then the British and the Southern people fought again, and on this occasion, the Ashantis were defeated. That was what paved the way for the Bond of 1844. Now, all those coastal states and their immediate hinterlands then became independent of Ashanti. Those who were vassals of Ashanti all became independent. So I'm talking about Seshi, Wasa, I'm talking about Dintra, I'm talking about Achim and the rest. And Akuapem, they all became, and then the Adangwesi, they all became independent of Ashanti. So Ashanti's power was then limited to Ashanti itself, metropolitan Ashanti, and then the what is now Bono and Ahafo area, and then some part of and then the Northern Territory, what was also the Northern Territory, Gonja, Dagomba, and Kitikrachi area. They were all part of the Ashanti Kingdom. They were vassals of Ashanti. Then in 1869, Ashanti decided to make a trust to Peki, that is Peki area, the whole area.
Yeah.
That place was part of Akwamu Empire. But then they rebelled against Akwamu and asserted their independence. So Ashanti decided to take advantage of that to invade that place. And by then, the Bremen meeting had established stations at Ho, Krepi, Peki, and other places. Then also at Anum and Boso, the Presbyterians had also established meeting stations over there. So when Ashanti invaded the place, it led to a situation. Ashanti captured Ramsia, Kone, and Bonat. Ramsia and Kone were missionaries. The Bonat was a French trader and sent them to Ashanti. They used diplomacy, and diplomacy didn't work. When the diplomacy didn't work, the British eventually in 1874 had to send an expedition to Ashanti and then defeated the Ashantis. And this also led to a situation where its vassals in the Northern Territory asserting their independence, so the Dagomba and the Gunjas and those in Kitikrati area, they all gained their independence from Ashanti rule. Then, in 1896, the British again invaded Kumasi. This time, they used a pretext that in 1894, they had a treaty with Ashanti and imposed a war indemnity on Ashanti. Ashanti had not paid the 50,000 ounces of gold indemnity that was imposed on them. And based on that pretext, they arrested King Prempeh, Asante Prempeh the first, exiled him eventually to Seychelles, and then declared Ashanti a protectorate and stationed Donald Stewart there as a resident. So he became a resident. Then in 1901, Ashanti rebelled. 1900, but it ended in 1901. Ashanti rebelled when the governor at that time, Governor Hodgson, demanded the golden stool. He went to Kumasi and demanded the golden stool. The men were sitting down. Bayas Antoine inspired them and he spat on Governor Hodgson and challenged the men to fight them. They fought, they rebelled, but unfortunately, Ashanti lost the war, and Britain declared Ashanti as a conquered territory with the signal defeat of Ashanti, and by the order in council, they said that by the signal defeat of Ashanti, Ashanti has become a conquered territory. So now they station a chief commissioner in Ashanti. But meanwhile, before then, they were signing treaties through their agents like Ekem, Ferguson, and others. They were signing treaties with the chiefs in the northern half of our country. And based on that treaty, in 1902, they also declared the northern part of our country as a protectorate, with Tamale as the capital and a chief commissioner stationed at Tamale. So this is how come the British came to colonize us. It was a systematic one. It was not a one-time event. It was a process. And eventually they colonized this area. Meanwhile, the eastern side of the Gold Coast had been colonized by the Germans, and it was called Togoland. And in between 1914 and 1918, there was an outbreak of World War I between Germany and its allies, and then Britain, France, and its and Russia. Britain, France, and Russia. Eventually, Britain and France and Russia emerged victorious, and at the Treaty of Versailles, they imposed indemnities on them. And as part of the treaty that was signed at Versailles, they took away all the colonies of Germany. This included Togoland, this included Tanganyika, Cameroons, and then Southwest Africa, which is now called Namibia. And with respect to Togoland, the French and the British decided to parcel it. And in parceling it, the British took the western side. That is from the north. That is Pusiga area through Waliwari, Mampusi area, Boko down to Konkomba area, Ketekrachi, up to Ho area. All these places were part of the Togoland, and it was given to Gold Coast to administer it on behalf of the League of Nations. Then, when you were about to have our independence, our leaders saw that territory was a trustee territory, which was being administered on behalf of UN. The League of Nations was supplanted by the United Nations, so they had to determine its fate, and a plebiscite was held. And when the plebiscite was held, majority of the people, Yendi was part of it, and Yana, the overlord of Dagon, is in Yendi, and Tamale, the capital of the Northern Territory, which is part of his kingdom, was in British side.
Sure.
While the overlord, the traditional capital, was part of the German territory, which eventually became a trustee territory. So when they did the plebiscite, they voted massively for a unification with the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Those in the south, particularly our brothers in the south, the southern part of Transvolta Togoland, they wanted a union with Togo, Republic of Togo, what is now Republic of Togo. But because majority carries the vote, they became part. They got integrated with the Gold Coast, and so this was in 1956. So in 1957, when we had our independence, they had been integrated into the Gold Coast, and so when we changed the name from the Gold Coast and became Ghana, it applied to them as well. And so that is, if you are asking me how we became Ghana. We became Ghana on 6 March 1957, but we had to go through all these processes before we became a nation called Ghana.
Great. Professor Kwame Osei-Kwarteng, in fact, we're very grateful to you this morning.